Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Hope you're having a fabulous day. We're going to do a live Q&A video. We're going to chat about anti-nutrients in food. Could it be causing your gut issues and your health concerns? Before we dive in, put your comments down below. Let me know what you think about phytates and anti-nutrients and oxalates, and let me know what your progress or success has been with that. And before we do, smash that like button. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button as well, comments below, and make sure you hit the bell so you get notifications coming your way. All right, let's dive in. So anti-nutrients. Anti-nutrients are essentially compounds in the food that can make it hard to digest protein or certain minerals, make it hard to break the food down. So typically food survives through the ability to pass on its seed, right? So an animal eats it, it passes it on through its stool, and then it can grow, whether it's a berry bush or another seed. It's going to pass on through surviving the intestinal tract. And part of how food can survive the intestinal tract, it does it through anti-nutrients. These anti-nutrients could be lectins or phytates or oxalates or enzyme blockers. Phytates and oxalates are kind of like mineral blockers. So these types of compounds, they're going to block minerals and protein and the food itself from being broken down. Therefore, that food will pass the digestive tract of another mammal and hopefully be able to sprout and grow somewhere else. So that's kind of the general gist of how anti-nutrients work. They're there for the plant's survival, okay? Very important. So on that note, if you have a sensitive digestive tract, if you have problems, if you have poor digestion, it's possible that those anti-nutrients could be a problem. So what are the first couple of things you can do? So number one is you can steam or saute or cook your food. That helps decrease a lot of the anti-nutrients. Phytates, mineral blockers. It won't ever lower them 100%. I mean, things like oxalates, there may still be a little bit. It'll never take a high oxalate and make it low, maybe a high to a medium. So, you have to kind of weigh that in. So cooking definitely helps. Soaking, especially like nuts and seeds, these have a lot of mineral blockers in there, protein blockers. So you have to factor that in as well. So soaking does help. Cooking, steaming, sauteing can help. The heat process obviously breaks it down. The soaking process breaking it down. Having more enzymes and acids present will help break them down more as well. Again, a lot of these compounds can block enzyme production in the body. So if you have extra enzymes, that may also help break it down. There's a book out there called The Plant Paradox by Dr. Gundry where he kind of talks about some of these philosophies. And you have a lot of people on the carnivore camp. I mean, why are people on the carnivore camp getting results? I mean, you see guys like, I think it's Sean Baker, they have great results with people that have a lot of autoimmune issues. They have great results because they're having a hard time breaking down some of these plant nutrients. So, of course, we cut out the grains and we cut out the more common offending food allergies, the dairy, the refined sugar, the processed fats. We cut that stuff out. That's great. And a lot of people do awesome on these plants, but some people don't. And the question is why? Now, most people that I work with, a paleo template or an autoimmune paleo or a low FODMAP or a low salicylate or a low phenol kind of SED gig, a lot of times that's enough, but sometimes we have to go the extra mile and do some kind of a carnivore diet or some kind of a diet where we really work on decreasing a lot of those oxalates, phytates, mineral blockers through cooking, digestion, avoiding some of the higher ones, or even going on a carnivore template. And it's good to have these tools, and people just think, well, this diet's right for me and this diet should be right. It's like there are certain diets that are going to be best for people. The more sick someone is or the more digestive issues they have, we kind of go up the ladder with different options, whether it's SED or low FODMAP or carnivore, and really focus on cutting down some of these anti-nutrients. So that's kind of a good first step, kind of gives you some insight on why that may be a problem and what to do about it. So I hope that helps. Let's dive in and see if we have any questions here. Just wanted to see what's up. I tried digestive enzymes, HCl, because I'm in my early 40s. It didn't help. How do we know we need them? Some days are better than others. So first off, Agnes, I need to know what your digestive issues are. So, I mean, you were like, hey, I have bloating, I have gas, I have digestive issues. Is that the concern? And then you did HCl and enzymes. You didn't have any improvement. So the first thing is kind of what your digestive issues are. And then number two, is your diet even good? Because your HCl and enzymes cannot make up for things in your diet that are causing problems. So the first thing is you have to, what are your issues? Second thing is, what's your diet like, and how much has diet moved the needle? Some people are like, oh, my diet doesn't help. And I'm like, well, okay, well, what happens if you had a standard American diet? Well, I feel like crap. Oh, okay, good. So your diet is helping. It's just not all the way there. And sometimes we have to get even more specific. Had a large salad and woke up to some itchy bumps on my fingers and thumb. Would that be an oxalate type of reaction? It could be. It could also be histamine too, right? There's a lot of overlap, like phenols and salicylates and histamine. These are all compounds. Histamine is more of an immune reaction from the food. Also, foods, you can cause histamine release from the food. Some foods could just have high levels of histamine, just like citrus does or like fermented food does. So some foods can stimulate histamine release. Some will actually have histamine. So it just would depend on what the food was. You said salads. I mean, if it's green vegetables, it could be. It really depends upon the frequency. If you're eating green vegetables a lot and you have that reaction and you pull it out and you don't, then more than likely there's some kind of an anti-nutrient / histamine problem in the food. Male friends losing a lot of hair, did low carb for a month, lost 25 pounds, have kept it up, but hair still falling out. Any suggestions on what to do? So I would look at thyroid levels. I would also make sure his digestion's good, and I'd look at adding extra collagen amino acids in. So thyroid, make sure digestion's good, and add extra collagen. Have you personally ever used oxy powder? I use it in my practice all the time. I have not personally used it because I've never had a motility problem, but I use it with a lot of patients that have motility. So I've used it hundreds of times over the years. It's a great product. I like it for motility. It really helps move the bowels. People forget, like, I don't push a lot of detoxification stuff with patients till they get healthier, but people forget that having a regular bowel movement, you're detoxifying, right? You're pushing out stuff in the stool that's toxic. Remember, your stool's like half fiber, half bacteria and toxins. So by having regular BMs, we're really getting those toxins excreted, and that really makes a huge difference. Is there any good time when going all vegetables is a good idea? Some people do really well, like on a vegan diet, if their digestion's really bad. I've seen it go both ways. Some do really great with carnivore. I'd say a minority do really great with plants. It just depends, because plants are still hard to digest. So I typically would tell patients, like, if they feel really good fasting, then I typically say, all right, let's kind of add a soup back in. And then we can start adding meat to the soup, see how we feel. If we start feeling worse, then we can start leaning more on the vegetable side of the soup and start doing celery and carrots and maybe some gentle fats that way. So it just depends on what direction, what lever moves the needle. Now, I think fats and proteins are essential, right? We know they're essential, but it just depends upon what moves the needle. I tend to do what works. So I've had some patients really do better, more plant-based, and then we get more amino acids, maybe we get more fats from MCT, and then we just kind of gently nudge in proteins and fats over time. Some we have to do an elemental. Everyone's a little bit different, but most people, if we start on that plant-based side, we try to progress fats and proteins in there. Are these pre-submitted questions or live? This is totally live, off the cuff, functional medicine improv here at your fingertips. What do you suggest for really bad, achy back and muscles? Well, it always depends what the cause, right? I'm at my stand desk, right? So I stand or on my treadmill or on my little bike over here seeing patients all day. So I try to get a little bit of variety. So I think it's good to be, sitting, standing, walking, moving. So you have a combination of that. I think that's important. Number two is getting good movement in. So if you're doing exercise, whether it's something that with good hip extension, and or foam rolling is great. And then obviously if you can get good body work done, whether it's myofascial release or soft tissue work, that's going to be really helpful. Jordan writes in, what does one do when following the proper guidance and still experiencing issues? War, brain trauma, complex exposure, biological, chemical exposure, how to generate needed income. So first off, Jordan, I know you're a patient. I haven't seen you in a while. So I want to check in, see how you're doing with hormone stuff, gut stuff, number one. Number two, any unresolved PTSD stuff, I strongly recommend seeing a good practitioner that does EFT, EMDR, NLP work, really knock down any unresolved trauma that's hanging out, because that just keeps the sympathetic nervous system firing. That keeps the adrenals going. It keeps depleting hydrochloric acid and enzymes. So all that's really important if you want to heal. Second thing is I want to check up with you soon and see how we're doing with your adrenal program and digestion and see how we're doing with some of the gut stuff. So I want to check in with you real soon. Can drinking cold water be bad for the body? Well, it just depends. I mean, when you drink a lot of cold water, that water gets held up in your intestines because it's got to heat the body's going to heat the water up before it lets it go in the intestines. So, because if it goes down here and it's really cold, it's going to cause the intestines to shiver. So, usually when you drink a lot of cold water, it stays up here until it hits about body temperature, and then it gets released. So, it'll hold up a lot of stuff in your tummy. So, if you're drinking a bunch of cold water while you eat, that could really throw off your digestion. So, if you do it, make sure it's not with food, and it's mainly for the purpose to kind of cool you down from coming inside. It's not a problem. Would the Dutch test tell you where a male thyroid situation is? Not necessarily. I mean, there's a couple of thyroid patterns you can see on the Dutch test. Like, you can see on the Dutch test if free cortisol is high and total cortisol is low. That can always be a thyroid issue because the metabolism is so low that you're not able to metabolize the free cortisol. Therefore, it goes up, but total cortisol is low. That's a thyroid pattern. But you'd want to do a thyroid blood test to assess what's going on. TSH, T4 free, T3 free, thyroid antibodies, reverse T3 are all really good. Okay, very good. So I reach out, Jordan, to someone like that. I put a person's name, Daniel Hill, on your protocol sheet. Take a look at him. He's really good for the EMDR support and the EFT. It's a couple of studies on EMDR and EFT at helping with PTSD. Riley writes in, Redmond's real salt versus Himalayan sea salt. I like Redmond's. I think it's more soluble. I think there's more minerals in it, and it tastes better. Hope that helps, Jordan. Would you suggest diet-wise to rid extra fat, especially in the arms or back? What I would suggest, I would lean into just going more lower carb, good fats, good proteins, most of your carbs through vegetables, and then add in a little bit of resistance training or circuit training. And just try to eat enough so you're satiated. Don't overdo it. Eat enough so you're full. Most of the time when you get proteins and fats on board, your satiation's better. You don't need as much to feel full. So your calories may drop a little bit, but it's not because you're counting calories. It's because your satiation is more fine-tuned. Okay, good. Excellent questions. Let me go up here. Eric read in, Justin did a GI map test. Are you familiar with zonulin? It's new to me, and apparently my result is really high. Yeah, so zonulin is a marker for gut permeability. So it's a protein produced by the gut. The more permeable the gut is, or the more zonulin goes up, the more permeable the gut is. So, of course, zonulin's an effect marker, not a cause marker, right? So if you have like gluten sensitivity or like a blasto infection or an H. pylori infection or certain food issues, or you're not digesting your foods, that can create gut stress. Therefore, zonulin can go up, right? So I always look at zonulin as is chicken or the egg. So it tends to be an effect. The cause of why the zonulin is high has to be looked at. So we always go to the 6 R's: remove the bad foods, replace enzymes, acids, repair the gut lining, remove infections, repopulate good bacteria, retest. Great question. Okay, excellent. All right, let me keep on rolling. How important is it that copper, and how important is copper if you're taking zinc, and how would you go about getting it? I mean, copper and zinc kind of have a natural ratio. If you go to myfooddata.com and look at the highest copper foods and the highest zinc foods, you'll find that they overlap. So it's really hard to get an imbalance in copper and zinc unless you're doing some kind of a fortified food or some kind of like a really high dose zinc supplement and you're not doing enough copper. A lot of people are more concerned about copper toxicity. So usually zinc is really important. It's harder to overdo on zinc unless you're doing like lots of seafood, for instance. I'm going to pull up the highest copper foods and the highest zinc foods, okay? So copper, oysters is number 1 for copper. Guess what's number 1 for zinc? Oysters. So see how the zinc-copper ratio is there. Number 2, mushrooms. And again, mushrooms is still in the top 10 for zinc. So for zinc, you're going to see mushrooms at number 10. So still a top food. Tofu is actually really high in zinc as well. But again, it's the mineral blockers. It's the anti-nutrients in the tofu that may decrease your body's ability to access that tofu. Now, if it's more fermented, probably better, right? Sweet potatoes, number 4. Sesame seeds, number 5. Cashews, number 6. Chickpeas, number 7. Salmon, number 8. Dark chocolate, 9. Avocados, 10. And that's for copper. And then we have mushrooms. And then on the zinc, let me go over the zinc. So we have beef, number 2. 1, seafood, oysters. 3 is chicken legs. 4 is tofu. 5 is pork chop. 6, hemp seeds, then lentils, yogurt, oatmeal, and then mushrooms. So you can see about at least half the 6 of those foods or so overlap with zinc and copper. So they're the same, which is really good. So animal products and nuts and seeds for sure Just if you have to have problems with the nuts and seeds, soak them so you get the absorption better. How do I get rid of mucus from my daughter's throat? She's 5 and her lymph nodes under her chin are swollen. So why though? You have to figure out why. So is there an infection? Is it a food issue? Is it a environmental issue? You can always do a good sinus flush. Watch my video on how to do a sinus flush, number 1. Number 2, you can do some extra NaC. NaC will help decrease a lot of the mucus. And then look at sugar and look at dairy and look at gluten. Make sure a lot of those things, if they're there, cut them out. You can always do some ginger. The ginger will really help the lymph nodes as well. Our website, myfooddata.com, if you want to look at your nutrient levels. I'll go put some links in here so you don't even have to go and hunt it down. There's your zinc and there's your copper. Just remember, these sites are not looking at the absorptive quality of food. A lot of things that have tofu or legumes or some nuts, they can decrease some of the absorption because of the mineral blockers or enzyme blockers in there. So that can make it harder. Hey, you're welcome, Eric. Yeah, let's chat again real soon. I hope you're doing really good. Keep me posted, Eric. Excellent. Okay, good. So I send over those nutrients for copper and for zinc. The big issue is with women, you may have to be careful if you have a Paragard IUD. That's copper, so that could give you extra copper. So you may want to supplement extra zinc if you have a Paragard just to be on the safe side so you don't really skew that ratio. One sec. My cat literally grabbed my Fitbit off my leg and it was chewing on it. Bad cat, Dexter. Okay. All right, excellent. Any other questions, guys? Feel free to let me know. In general, anti-nutrients, soak your foods, steam them, cook them, saute them. At least give it a good saute. At least give it a good cook. You can always lean in with a little bit more enzymes, a little more acid. Don't forget the overrated art of mastication, chewing. Easy way to break down your foods. All right, y'all. Hope that makes sense. Hope you enjoyed today's content, and I'll be back tomorrow morning around 9 a.m.-ish. All right, y'all. Take care. Bye.